applied to board members in general. Some people run for boards just for the title, and then they're apathetic towards doing the work. Hopefully, the point of having elected officials is to always have that public pressure to do the work. So I think apathy, while it's always a danger and peril of any board, will be corrected, and will be corrected through elections.
Election.
Yes. So I think it's a valid concern, and I think it's a concern that should always be ever present. What if somebody becomes apathetic? And you can see from our debate and how long we've talked about this that no one here
We're
is
not
apathetic.
Well, I see in the last line that it says a quarterly report, but it doesn't delineate what we're reporting. That we met 3 times, that we spent an hour and a half going over something. I want to see accomplishments, goals, objectives,
Right,
objectives
But
and
that's
goals.
because the committee
It
hasn't
hasn't
meant to
started
define
yet.
those
We
things.
don't have goals because we're not,
Okay,
the board isn't supposed to create the committee's goals. The committee is supposed to create the committee's goals.
And just to be clear, it does say quarterly update to the board and a progress update. So I get it, it might be too vague. Maybe we should,
you know what, it's upon creation of the committee, you start defining that stuff. Right now, we're all about, do we want the committee, yes or no? And, I actually kind of like the little light bulb, aha, I should have had a V8. I think that's true, is that not giving it a timeline encourages whoever comes into the board that you're gonna put in the work as well. That this is an expectation that's been set up that, and then by that point, by the time a new board member comes in, kind of like a climate has been, hopefully, a positive climate of work has been created, and so when somebody steps into that, usually it's like, oh, this is what we do and this is how we do it. Oh, okay, I can't be yelling and screaming and hijacking the meetings and doing because
I mean,
it's not within.
we're all aware of the fact that in 2 years, there's going to be potentially 3
Another new
people, a new board. There's going to be potentially 3 other people who might not be you and I, and setting them up with the expectation that this is continuing past us. It's bigger than us sitting in this room, and this work needs to continue for our district's future forever, I think is a good.
frankly, if it wasn't just, if it wasn't something like, if we weren't interested in something like this going on with future boards, then we'd do a superintendent's committee.
Right.
Well,
And
I
the
don't think
superintendent
right.
could unilaterally, as they come and go, as, one day Michelle retired, we'll have a new superintendent.
She's not retiring.
One day, a new superintendent could say, well, yeah, I don't wanna do that, so I'm going to dissolve the committee. So by having a board committee, it doesn't allow that opportunity to unilaterally be dissolved at any time.
They'll have to have a discussion to dissolve this rather than it just end and the next board not bother doing anything about it.
Right.
Right.
And it's a much bigger issue than just us. It needs to continue on.
I think I agree with that.
I'm
I agree with that.
supportive of it not having it end.
So, okay, we've
Debated this to death.
We've debated on the committee type, we've debated on the time frame. We've talked about committee purpose.
It's fine as because we can redefine it and refine it once it's been established. So I'm not so hung up on all the bullet points because of the words, but is not limited to. We
Right.
can do what we need to do. So the motion on is to approve the standing committee. So let's call for the vote.
Dana, looks like you're thinking.
I think that
You're on the committee, so you get to help form how you want it to be. This is in the infancy, so we all get to set the foundation for how this is to operate.
I can't support it being indefinite. That doesn't mean that I don't believe in the purposes behind
That's
it.
okay, well then we can call the vote and
And then
can
you
vote
just,
accordingly.
yeah, exactly.
Or if you'd like to go through the, the due process of it, then you can propose an amendment and see if it's seconded. And then
No,
if so, then we
let's-
can do that vote.
It sounds like we can vote on this.
It sounds like we can, but I wanna make sure she
She
goes
can,
through her options if she
Yeah.
wants to exercise any of them.
if nobody seconds it,
If
then it
nobody,
dies.
yeah,
But then do we vote for the original one?
If it, yes,
Oh,
yes.
that's what would happen if the motion failed.
okay.
But it doesn't sound like there are any committee options based on our bylaws.
no,
So I
It's-
cannot, with
you-
my following our bylaws, I cannot
You
provide
can't.
any other options.
no.
You could,
You could ask for the time frame to be set, correct? That's what
Correct.
she could request.
and that's, let me read that little paragraph there for us.
It's not clear.
Upon establishing a committee, the
Yeah.
board shall clearly define the committee's purpose, any timeline for completion of assigned responsibilities,
Assigned responsibilities.
any stakeholder groups or individuals to be represented on the committee, length of time that committee members are expected to serve, and expectations for reporting to the board and/or the superintendent.
So you have the committee member term, which is 1 year, so that's that expectation. I didn't hear a time frame for the committee's existence, I didn't
Exactly.
hear that.
That's what.
So, and then the other interesting part, just to be clear, unless specifically authorized by the board to act on its behalf, the committee shall act in an advisory capacity.
Right,
Right.
And we
but we
haven't,
all knew that.
I just wanna make sure that was clear too, because we haven't specifically given,
It's,
um,
it's,
because right in the purpose, it says developing and referring recommendations to the board of trustees,
right,
which
The committee
includes
does
but is not
nothing.
limited.
Yeah.
right, so that's advising the board.
Okay, so that's fair, any timeline for completion of assigned responsibilities does not,
It's not,
Leave
is
no
not
timeline
necessarily
on the
how long will the committee exist.
right.
Okay,
So committee, there we go. Superintendent committee or / ad hoc committee or standing committee.
and it says any timeline, so that also means it's optional. Any timeline if provided, essentially, is how I read that. Or any timeline if applicable. It doesn't say a timeline, so it doesn't explicitly say we need a timeline for, completing assigned responsibilities.
No, we just, but what is, but meaning that we haven't given an end date to the committee is not
Correct.
in there.
Yes.
Exactly, so,
Okay.
so basically, there's two options, the superintendent committee / ad hoc committee, but that limits participation by board members or a standing committee.
It's also not subject to the Brown Act.
Which, yeah, but mostly it's attendance by all. So those are your options, Jordana.
It does,
That's what you got.
another thing as well, just to be clear about, as the board evolves and as the committee evolves in terms of membership, that doesn't preclude people who are not on the committee from being at those committee meetings, but they can only be there as observers or a public audience, essentially. So it doesn't preclude them from showing up,
Right. But,
just as it does for our advisory
Right.
committees today, for LCFF, I'm sorry, LCAP. For an LCAP meeting, all of us could go, but we have to be
observing.
observers.
Can I throw in another question? So if we will be getting one more person on the board, and if they wanna participate in that, can they be assigned as a committee member by the board
Yes,
at that time?
we can vote,
We can vote to include a new committee member.
yeah,
I wouldn't see any
Okay.
issues with that. I
Yeah.
wouldn't see any reason why not.
Okay.
yeah, I mean, we would just agendize it to say so-and-so is included as a committee member on these.
Approval of committee,
Yeah.
of so-and-so
Yeah.
to the Equity and
Perfect.
Social Justice Committee.
Okay.
So that would be, and then from that point, they'd serve,
What-
I guess we could, we'd have to make adjustments, because we did say that the committee members would serve 1 year, and every year we review and renew. So I don't know if we have to maybe appoint to a certain time period, so that way we're all on the same cycle, if you know what I mean? Because if we approve this today, and we all start our 1-year term today, then in December, they'll be on a different track. So we'll have to maybe,
We just.
Make it
Well,
It
theirs
doesn't
goes
matter.
to the end of the deadline, whatever
Yeah.
that year
Okay.
is, so
Yeah.
they just jump in with ours.
Yeah.
that's fine.
All right, so the motions as, what do you wanna do, Jordana?
It doesn't sound like they have any options.
No. But just know that you are part of the creation of something, and so you have the ability to, all of us, to formulate it together.
And also it can, again, it's dissolved by board action, so if you're at a point where the committee needs to be dissolved, you can ask for that to be on the board agenda and bring it to the
This would
board.
be an
Does that
inflammatory
make
committee
sense?
to dissolve once it's established.
Well, I don't
That's
think
my
so.
hope. mean,
I think
that-
even with a 2-year
and
renewal
that's
plan, it would
our-
be inflammatory.
Right. I don't think it should be dissolved, but I'm just saying you could.
I mean, every 2 years, you're inviting, you'd be
Controversy.
inviting controversy if
Or
that's.
no
if-
controversy.
If that's the concern. You do have, just to be clear on your options,
Yeah.
you could introduce any type of amendment to this existing document. You could also propose a substitute motion, if you would like. You could also make a motion to table indefinitely. There's a lot of options that you could take if you wanted to exercise any of them.
But
So
in
it's
terms
not to
of-
say that there aren't options.
Right, but she's talking, in terms of options, she's looking at a different option for
For
the
the
committee.
Okay.
Well,
then
for
I-
example, a motion to table indefinitely would take precedence, and it would have to be voted on before this.
One edit I really would like to make sure this document has is, on that 6th bullet point, instead of having it say that, students and staff members that often face challenges that necessitate additional work to ensure equity, I really would like to strike the word often.
That's fine.
So it would read, creating a culture of support and embracement for students and staff members that face challenges that necessitate additional work to ensure equity.
Yes,
That's
please.
fine.
That's good.
Leslie, I know that you're there in the virtual world. How does that sound to you?
To strike often, yes.
Okay.
Jordana?
I think
Yes.
he's reading.
Just trying to see if there's any other,
Please.
But this is going to be refined once upon the establishment. So this can be worked on within the committee. Once it's established and once we start these bulletin points, it's just to give overviews.
some concerns, I mean, obviously you're seeing my brain going a
Yeah.
million miles a minute
No,
and my
that's
mouth is
fair.
shut, okay.
Sure.
So some of the things, I'm just gonna have a little bit of a diarrhea of the mouth right here. Is, a friend of mine who used to teach in the district, went and taught in a school district down the hill. It was primarily a staff of color, and, she had a lot of difficulties in that school district because of the associated staff, who called themselves the posse, and they kept on telling her, you have no business being here. I think that an antagonistic behavior can happen between all sorts of different people.
Agreed.
I have a loved one right now who's involved in a committee that actually met today, and it's a social equity committee that's based on, something that's happening, I'll just leave it at that. But actually, the speaker, the social justice expert that they brought in to speak to this group basically said, if you don't follow my guidelines, I will go to the press and I will let them know what kind of an organization you are. I'm concerned about some forms of that kind of behavior. I believe we have a lot of work to do in this district. I believe we have a lot of ignorance. I do believe that there are biases that we need to learn about, and I think that there are problems that need to be addressed. But I don't believe that I think we have a very caring community. I think a lot of the behaviors, not all of them, are based from ignorance. And I'm very concerned that we're going to demonize ourselves in the process, when actually I think that there's education that needs to happen. But these are where my concerns are coming
Right,
from.
but as a committee, we would have to agree upon the people that we bring in to work with us. We have to collectively agree to that, and we can look at their resumes and we can say, reach out to like Dr. Margaret Hill and say, how did this work for you guys down there? With working with Dr. Betters, you know, that kind of stuff, we can get those kinds of recommendations. Because to be honest, I went to an equity symposium in Washington DC, and all day was about equity, and at the end I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I should have bought my house in Compton. I'm a terrible person for not and it was just because I was being hammered. There was one speaker, like what you talked about, that was just like a sledgehammer, and I agree. That's not the kind of approach, and that's not what we're really targeting. What we want to do is really help the students of color and gender, and we need somebody that helps us get there. We don't need a sledgehammer to our faces.
And to me, your concerns are exactly why we need the committee.
Natalie, repeat that, I didn't hear you,
I
I'm sorry.
said to me, her concerns are exactly why we need the committee.
It needs to be handled so
Okay,
carefully.
thank you.
It
And
absolutely
and where I
does.
trust this group,
Yeah.
it's the,
But if you're
I don't
allowing,
want it to be used as a tool to somehow
But-
make it seem like our community
but if you're
is
allowed,
not the caring community that it generally actually is.
so then you need to be part of the fruition of this, and not be fearful, because if you're fearful, we're just gonna stay stagnant in one place. So be part of the creation of something that, how you want it, and the formulation of how you want it to be executed. Because if you're not participating, then it could go into a direction.
If we vote to have it, I will definitely participate.
Yeah.
But watching the screaming that was happening over in front of Goodwin's, and just seeing people who are not listening to each other. I think we do a good job, an excellent job of respecting each other and listening to each other. I'm concerned of a good program getting distorted over time, or possibly alienating the folks that we might be trying to help along the way.
Yeah.
That's
But
part
we
of
are
the
I mean,
stakeholders.
we are educators in an education,
Yeah.
in an education system, so that's why having the reports to the board and the progress updates and having it be
And the
publicized,
stakeholders.
it's an opportunity for education too, that the board, that the committee is going to be able to do.
And I think
And we may be educating, hey, we don't have problems that we maybe thought we had, or
Exactly.
we do have problems we didn't know we had. And so it's all about us learning and being able to share that with the larger public.
Yeah, I think that just in general, again, a fear of bad outcomes is not a reason to not do this. So I don't think that, yes, there's always a possibility that something inflammatory could happen, but I think that's a part of leading, and not something that we need to do. Sometimes we have to lead ourselves into tricky situations, but it's because we know there's an issue.
A difficult
Is it
conversation.
controversial? It's a difficult conversation, absolutely.
Then we shouldn't shy away from it.
That's my viewpoint. It doesn't, that means if anything, we should delve more into it.
And how to come to a resolution that's sensitive and productive instead of destructive. So we still have the motion on the table,
Yes.
so we can call for the vote, or Jordana can amend it.
I have the one amendment and I can't think of anything else at this point.
Okay.
So the motion is gonna stay as it is?
No, she's proposing an amendment
Oh, to that.
to strike the word often from bullet point
But that's
6.
it?
Yeah, yes, that's
Okay.
it.
Okay, so then let's,
Cindy, do you second that motion?
I second the
That
amendment.
amendment?
yes,
Okay.
to the draft.
All right, then we'll go ahead and call for the vote. I'll just make sure, Dr. Leslie Bramson, do you have any final thoughts or comments? I want to make sure you're included.
Thank you, no, sir.
Okay, then let's go ahead and call for the vote here on 12.5 as amended, striking the word often from bullet point 6 under committee purpose. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
The motion carries, and that was a 4-1 vote, 4 voting in favor, 1 voting nay, 0 abstentions.
Wait, you have to say who voted yes for it.
And we'll go ahead and record that vote here.
Thank you.
So Jordan Zarate, aye. Cindy Gardner,
Aye.
aye.
Natalie
Okay.
Lindemann, aye.
Natalie Lindemann, aye. Leslie Bramson,
Aye.
aye. And Jordana Ridlin,
Okay.
nay. Okay. And again, 0 abstentions. The motion carries. The committee is approved as amended. And with that, we'll move on to 12.6, Personnel Services. Approval of the personnel page, pages 151 through 152, fiscal impact budgeted.
So moved.
Cindy's our
Second.
first, Natalie's our second. Any discussion? Okay, we'll call for the vote on that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously. 12.7, Personnel Services. Approval of the Memorandum of Understanding, MOU, between California School Employees Association, CSEA, and Rim of the World Unified School District regarding return impacts and effects on the CSEA bargaining unit, pages 153 through 167, fiscal impact none.
So moved.
Cindy's our first,
I'll second.
Jordana's our second. Discussion? Any questions? Okay, we'll go ahead and call for the vote there on this. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously. 12.8, Educational Services. Approval of the resolution number 20/21-03, pupil textbooks and instructional materials compliance for fiscal year 2020-2021. Fiscal impact not to exceed 35,000. Unrestricted general fund, district office lottery, pages 168 through 169.
So moved.
Cindy's our first.
Second.
Natalie's our
Second.
second. Discussion. Okay, we'll go ahead and call for the vote then. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? And Dr. Bramson, how did you vote on that?
Aye.
Okay, the motion carries unanimously. 12.9, Business Services. Approval to make a contribution from the General Fund 1 to the Cafeteria Special Revenue Fund 13 for fiscal years 2018-2019 and 2019-2020. Page 170, fiscal impact not to exceed $245,171.27, unrestricted general fund.
So moved.
Cindy's our first,
I second.
Jordana's our second. Discussion?
Okay, still works my last nerve.
Yes.
Seriously. I thought we were doing really well, and we cut by like $68,000. What happened?
Actually, we are doing better
Okay, please
than we
tell
were,
me.
and this is really a technicality. So starting in 2018, the county superintendent of schools district financial services division required us to bring to board, which we did last year, the amount of the current year loss, which resulted from bad debt. Last year, we brought a bad debt statement
Right.
to you. And so last year, we had a contribution to be made. Normally, you don't see the contributions in a formal board action. When
No.
we contribute to transportation, to maintenance, to special ed, that's just an accounting entry.
Right, we see it in the
You
budget.
see it, and
Right.
it doesn't
Still
glare
works
out
my
at you.
nerve.
And, yeah, so, but starting in 2018, we had to bring it formally each year to board, and we followed the template from the county schools. The template didn't they included the amount of the loss that was resulted from bad debt, but not the total loss. They really
Okay.
changed their mind for some reason and said, we want the total loss, and then just say how much is bad debt. And so the 2018-19 had already been budgeted, and actually the transfer had taken place, and it was just sitting there on hold, and we found out this is the reason why. We decided just to bring both years to board, and we budgeted.
Okay.
So we budgeted, in 2019-20, over 150,000 of a contribution, and it ended up only being 98,000.
Right, I thought we
And
reduced
that's
it.
without even the layoff that we
Okay.
wanted to do, and then with the governor's action, we couldn't, and that was about going to be even another $60,000.
Okay.
So we made a lot of progress this year,
Okay.
and
So this is, okay,
It's
got
2
it.
years combined.
this is
Yeah, I
2
know that.
years worth.
got
Okay.
it. No,
Or
I,
because 2018 wasn't accepted by the county, so we think we've worded it how they like
Okay.
it. And be able to process 2 transfers, which of the 2018-19 had already been budgeted and is just kind of sitting there in limbo.
okay,
So with the reporting
So-
that you did earlier, this was already part of it?
It's already part
it's
of
already
it,
part, but it's just,
and we did budget 151 and some change, and
right,
it
and it was
ended up
only
being
90 something.
98.
Okay, all right.
And
now
part of that, decrease in this year's loss though was due to a higher, payment from the state on meals served during our closure. So one of those silver linings with, the pandemic is because we were serving everybody free, that the free lunches are, paid by the state at a higher rate. And so we actually had, even with increased food costs, because of the grab and go, we got paid at a higher rate for those meals.
Okay,
So that
So-
contributed to it a lot.
So we
so we're
expect,
still, sorry,
oh, go ahead.
one more thought. So we are still working on getting to someday,
Really a break even.
think,
Cafeteria should be,
Break even.
working at a break.
So
okay,
we should expect 2020, 2021, this number to look a lot better.
You know, with, we served the first 3 weeks at the,
Normal.
without being
Yeah.
everyone,
right, and the waiver
free.
kicked in
The
third,
waiver
August
kicked in,
31st.
so I think we're going to have a month where our meals per labor hour are going to be pretty dismal.
Right.
So, I can't, and we couldn't do the layoff that we wanted to do. So, I don't, depending on how
So she's
that,
breaking it bad to us.
Not that we
Yeah.
wanted to
I
do
think
that.
we're still going to see an improvement. Will it be, 40,000, $60,000 of improvement or not? We're going to have to wait and see, but
Right.
Okay. And the waiver, I know is till the end of December, correct?
they
But
expect it to
be
be,
to the end of the year,
Mhm.
but right now it's to the end of December, right?
yes,
Okay.
Okay.
All right,
yeah.
let me tell you, we went through all those waivers, at Sandabs, and I thought my head was going to explode. Okay.
All right. Well, thank you for clearing that up. Any other questions? We'll call for the vote on this one here. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And Dr. Bramson, how did you vote?
Aye.
Okay, the motion carries unanimously. 12.10, Business Services, approval of resolution number 20/21-04 for adopting GAN limit, fiscal impact none, what pages 171 through 175.
So moved.
Cindy's our first,
I'll second.
Jordan is our second. Questions? Okay, we'll go ahead and call for the vote on this thing. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously. 12.11, Business Services, approval of resolution number 20/21-05, waiver of certain procedures for sale of surplus real property at the district's administrative building site located at 27315 North Bay Road, Blue Jay, California, 92317, pages 176 through 186, fiscal impact none.
So moved. Go,
Ooh.
go Natalie. Go
Natalie's our
Natalie.
first,
I'll second it.
and Jordan is our second.
Ooh, Jordan.
So questions? I think if you wouldn't mind just briefly clarifying the waiver that we'll be voting on here in case anyone is not familiar with it.
Okay, so we're seeking a waiver with the California Department of Education to bypass the public bid requirements to sell property. Typically, under government code, you need to advertise for bids for sale of surplus real property, and just very similar to a construction bid. And then it tends to lead to lower prices because people will try to get the lowest price possible, but still being the highest. This waiver would allow us to put the property on a market similar to like a private
Household.
a private industry, and enlist a broker if we wanted to. We don't have people with a lot of real estate experience or the licenses. We would enlist a broker who could market it, and then we would be able to accept the best offer, and that may have varying conditions. So it wouldn't, on a public bid, cycle, we would set our expectations, and it would be very rigid. We want this price, these, and the conditions, and this time frame. And it would just be the most responsive who met all the check marks and the highest price would gain the property. This would allow us to maybe entertain a creative offer that none of us have thought about before. Get more of a competitive sales, where you see properties that are going above market value, with multiple offers. So it lends to being a more economic benefit for districts to go this route. If you approve it tonight, it'll be submitted to the California Department of Education for their agenda on November 5th. I believe it's November 5th. So they meet every other month to discuss waivers for various purposes. We had to run this waiver by both bargaining units and by our 7-Eleven committee, which all three were in support.
And for those that might be wondering, if there were a question out there such as, how would you know you're getting the fair market value for the property if it doesn't go out to public bid?
Well, we would be limited to only those bids that we receive. So we've done an appraisal of our properties, which is not a public document. So we would be able to set a price, knowing what the property's appraised for. We would be able to work with you in closed session and a broker to set that price, which I'm assuming would be at or more than what an appraisal and fair market value would come in at. With the bid process, you may get far below fair market value because you could only have 2 people show up to bid, and they could, lowball an offer. And then if they've met all the conditions, the board would then, we would have our lawyer with us during the bid opening, just like we did with Mary Tone. And there would only be certain circumstances where you could then reject all bids or not and start the process all over again.
So by going through this waiver process, it essentially allows the district more flexibility in terms of who it's selling to and what it's selling for. And like you mentioned, there could be more creative solutions.
And it tends to lend higher prices for the sale.
Gotcha. That makes sense. Any other questions? All right, let's go ahead and vote then. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously. 12.12, Business Services, approval of resolution number 20/21-06, waiver of certain procedures for sale of surplus real property, Valley of Enchantment vacant land, pages 187 through 197, fiscal impact none.
So moved.
Cindy's our first,
Second.
Natalie's our second.
Second.
George, turn.
Okay, discussion.
Same thing.
Yes, same thing.
Let's go.
All right, let's call for that vote then. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously. 12.13, Business Services, approval of the unaudited actuals financial report for 2019-20, page 198, fiscal impact none.
So moved.
Oh, Cindy's our first,
Second.
and then Natalie's our second. Discussion?
Good job, Jenny.
Yeah,
Yay.
thank you for that report.
That was good.
A mixture of news
Okay.
for our future.
Way to encapsulate that one.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? Okay, let's go for that vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously. 12.14, Board Governance, approval of the 2020-2021 school board goals, page 199 through 201, fiscal impact none.
So moved.
Cindy's our first,
I'll second.
Jordana's our second. This is also in your board packets. If anyone's curious to breeze over them, this is what we've been working with for a little while now. So,
All right.
any recommendations, changes, adjustments, or are we all okay and want to vote?
One vote.
One of them.
Thank you, Cindy, for doing the revisions.
Oh, well, thank you for meeting with Michelle and I so we could set success indicators. It was a joy. I'm not being facetious.
Okay. Dr. Branson?
Yay. I have, I have one alarm going off on my phone that I can't shut off. On page 201, second to the last line, I wasn't sure of my grammar. Should there be an S on the word, what is 201? Individuals. The full board recognizes individual board members
It should be singular.
or
yes.
individual board members.
All right, as amended.
Good catch.
Correct?
Yes,
Yeah,
Not plural?
yes.
Correct.
Okay.
all right, let's go ahead and,
I make that motion to approve as amended.
okay, do you have a second?
I second that, yeah.
Wonderful. So we have before us, 12.14 as amended. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously. And, oh, let me just mark it before I forget, as amended. Okay, 13.0 consent calendar. Items pulled for a separate vote and discussion to be taken into consideration during agenda item 14.0.
13.8.
13.8. I wanted to pull 13.5. Anything else? Okay. So, with that, we'll be moving forward with 13.1, 13.2, 13.3, 13.4, 13.6, 13.7, 13.9, 13.10, and 13.11. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Cindy's our first.
Second.
Leslie is our second. Any discussion? None. Calling for the vote. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously. So, 14.0, items removed from the consent calendar. Item 13.5, business services. Approval of Apple Store for Education Institution proposal number 21044271112 for Charles Hoffman, Valley of Enchantment, and Lake Arrowhead Elementary kindergarten classrooms and various educational specialized classrooms around the district, pages 220 through 222. Fiscal impact approximately $108,774.80. COVID-19 relief fund.
So moved.
Cindy's our first.
Second.
Natalie's our second. Discussion. I wanted to pull this one because it's a really interesting one. We already approved everything for Chromebooks and going one-to-one. Going with Apple for kindergartners, I think it makes great sense from a tablet perspective. It's much easier for kindergartners to handle a tablet device. It's much more interactive and tactile, and it makes great sense why we would do something like this. Michelle, do you want to kind of speak to it from a technology background in education?
For the iPads for the special ed and kindergarten classrooms, we did have our teachers vote if they wanted to have the Chromebook, and for the little ones, very difficult as they're learning letters to use the keyboard. So there's a lot of programs that are available on an iPad that they can use that are much more friendly than trying to get a kindergartner to navigate an entire keyboard. So a lot of districts that adopt technology tend to adopt the iPads for grades K to 2, for example, but it is a different, ecosystem. It's a different platform. There's different things we have to do to configure those devices for working within the network. So I'm sure Mark's right on top of all that stuff from Apple. It's much easier than it was 8 years ago when they didn't have platforms for helping districts integrate their devices into their networks, so I think our teachers and staff are very excited about the opportunity to choose for kindergarten.
I like that there's definitely choice, and again, it just makes good sense to go with the tablet type of thing for kindergartners and special ed, as opposed to forcing them on Chromebooks. Anything else? Okay, we'll call for the vote on this item, again, using COVID-19 relief funds. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And then Dr. Bramson, I didn't hear how you voted there.
Aye.
Okay, the motion carries unanimously. Moving on to item 13.8, business services, approval to file a notice of completion with FASM Creative for the mural replacement project at Rim of the World High School, pages 250 through 251, fiscal impact none. Do you have a motion?
So moved.
Natalie's our first.
I second it.
Second.
And,
Jordan.
Jordan is our second. Discussion?
I just pulled this because they're so beautiful and I feel like we need to highlight how gorgeous they are. I love that I get to, now going to work, I drive on the rim, so I get to pass them every day and I absolutely love them. Yesterday I pulled into the football field and saw the one in the back, and it
It's
just
beautiful.
gives so much of that pride and sense of community back to our school in general, or the high school is gorgeous, we all know that, but they did a marvelous job. I'm very happy we went with them and that it was someone local, and the whole project turned out great, I think.
I was really excited that we were gonna be able to get the murals up there, and with the digital images, I thought they looked really fantastic. But the scale of them
It's impressive.
is really, I didn't envision them being so large, and it fills the space beautifully, and I couldn't be more pleased.
And then I know I talk about it every time, but just a reminder on those murals, that funding was designated for that purpose when it passed, when Measure W passed back in 2012. This money was allocated. And again, because we completed all of our projects under budget and on time, we were able to include the mural costs right back in there as it was scheduled for. So again, a big kudos to everyone involved in making that happen.
I saw Paul on campus today. And some of the DSA
All our project managers.
and
We all love
signs.
Paul.
Love Paul. He's my favorite. He's up there with Ron Bennett. TMI.
Okay, let's call for that vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously. 15.0, governance team future agenda items planning. 15.1, time allotted for the Board of Trustees to request agenda items for future meetings. Do we have any requests for future meetings? Fortunately, that's why we have a governance calendar, right?
Yes, that's why we like that.
I'd like a progress update from our Equity and Social Justice Committee.
So I'll have to set a
We
meeting
have to
date
pick a
first.
date for that, right?
Yes.
I'm not being smart,
I think it was funny.
that's what we need.
Okay, progress report,
I didn't mean to be funny, I'm serious.
but it was funny.
I suspect the progress report that we'll get by our next board meeting will be the Equity and Social Justice Committee set, their first meeting date. Okay. Any other
And that
requests?
doesn't have to be on the next one, I'm just saying it obviously
Yeah,
needs to be worked into our
maybe-
governance calendar,
yeah.
that's all.
Maybe Jordan, in January, give it a couple months and and we find the governance calendar correct, Connie, in January, and then we can put it in regularly when we rework the governance calendar. Why don't we do it that way?
That makes great sense.
Thank you.
And any other requests? All right, then we'll move on to 16.0, future meeting dates. Special board meeting, September 24th, 2020 at 6 o'clock PM. District office, YouTube. Special board meeting, September 29th, 2020 at 6 o'clock PM. Again, that'll be at the district office and streamed on YouTube for anyone who wants to view it. And regular board meeting on October 15th, 2020 at 5:30 PM at the district office. And again, it'll be streamed on YouTube.
Just a note for anybody who's still listening, that the two special board meetings are about the LCP, nothing else. I was questioned by why did we have to have these two put on the calendar? They were questioning that, and I said it's all about the LCP, not the LCAP, but the LCP, that we needed to follow the process and the timeline by October 1st. So just putting it out there.
For my own clarification, 6 PM and 6 PM are when they are. 5:30 is open session, so
Right.
4 o'clock is that one.
Yeah,
Thank you. Just wanna make sure.
I know.
Did
I'm
you
gonna
say
show
4
up-
o'clock is when
I'm
we
gonna show
start?
up at 6 o'clock, and it's supposed to be 6 o'clock, not.
Yeah.
Correct, yes, we're showing up at 6 o'clock, Dr. Branson, just to be clear,
Thank you.
of course. And then the other thing, it's not on here for our future meeting dates, but again, just would like to throw in time with trustees. Next Wednesday, September 16th, 2020 at 6 o'clock PM. And that'll be held via Zoom. And that link is to be determined.
I have an item here.
Michelle?
So we will need to have a special board meeting after October 15th for the provisional appointment for trustee area 1. It must be done before the elections, according to ed code or law. So,
I'm
we
sorry,
need-
what did you say?
we need to
Before?
have, it has to be before the elections, but we need time to, we're gonna advertise, and then it flies for, the application will be open for 2 weeks, and then it'll close, then 2 board members will then take and review those applications, and then and look at them, because we have to, make sure that they are,
In the right act.
right, they
area.
live where they say they're
No,
going
no,
to
no.
live with the office of the voter registration.
Mm-hmm.
And then we need to have a special board meeting to interview any candidates that apply. So, and that has to be done prior to the election, so that they start their term
Do we
in
select,
December.
and are they selected prior to the election?
They have to be selected
Yes.
Okay,
prior
so
to
the
the election.
interview and selection are on the same day?
Yes,
Okay.
And it's really fun because it's
so
all
it has
done
to be
openly,
the,
and your discussion is done openly.
Openly.
So you
Okay.
debate their merits
yeah, in front of them.
Hmm.
It's
Oh, that's
really
super
embarrassing.
fun.
It's really kind of embarrassing.
It is, so we have to have that really the last week of October, so I don't know if
Not on Halloween.
you, Halloween's on
Halloween's
Saturday.
canceled.
Oh, thank God. Don't cancel Halloween.
But Newsom would not like us to trick or treat. But, so I don't know if you wanted to pick a date this evening,
Yeah,
Or-
let's do
Yes.
that.
So, again, that has to be after
after,
the October 15th board meeting.
yeah, and before the election.
So either if we wanna stick with Thursdays, we could do the 22nd or the 29th. How long will it, well, we don't know, because we don't know how many people are
Yeah,
gonna
if
apply.
it's one candidate, or,
It shouldn't take very
Yeah.
long.
there you go.
How about the 22nd?
Sure.
And that way, I don't know, is there any reason that we would have to reschedule or do another one at all?
No,
No.
you
Cause
just
if no one applies, then we have to,
do it then.
pay,
It'll be a special election, right?
yeah, you have to go to the county, we take it to county, and there's something that they can they either recommend, we refly, right, or that we go to special election, that's very costly.
Yeah, we don't want special elections, so we need to recruit.
Well, you think if nobody,
Somebody fill out some applications.
you-
Okay, are we setting the date for
22nd.
October 22nd?
And can we do
Just trying to
6
get to my
weeks?
calendar to make sure that.
And
Let's-
6 PM.
yeah, let's wait, then make sure that that's okay with our
Sorry.
superintendent.
All right, waiting for Michelle.
And
Yeah,
then
no, I
When does the application process open? Is it for that?
It will open after we fly it, so it'll be advertised in the newspapers next week, and then it'll be open until October 9th.
And for newspapers, we should be advertising, I would suggest, in newspapers that publish in trustee area 1, correct?
Connie knows that, but we
Okay.
don't know if we're gonna get it in time in the one that's published monthly.
Gotcha.
because we're probably too late.
So it's, so if it's
It's
October.
gonna be advertised in
it'll
at
be
least
now.
two newspapers
And on our website.
and on our website.
Will that be the board, using it on our website?
Yes,
And is that, what time did we pick?
6 o'clock.
Okay,
Sorry,
No,
because now
no, it's okay, it's okay.
that makes
Don't
good
bother
sense.
about it.
No, I don't know.
Okay,
Is that date okay for you, Michelle?
yep.
Woo! Michelle has an
October
open spot.
yes, and let's make sure that's clear. There will be a special board meeting on October 22nd at 6 o'clock PM, and that will be to discuss the appointment of somebody to trustee area 1,
Interview,
interviews,
Interview
Sorry.
and select.
yeah.
Yes,
interviews and
for provisional, like,
and provisional appointments.
And it's for 2 years.
Yes, and that appointment will be until the next election date, so that'll be 2022.
And then that would then mean that election date would be another 2-year.
It would, yes,
To
correct.
to finish the 4-year.
So we'd appoint to a short term, and then
They
the
run
election
for-
would be for a short term as
Kind of
well.
like the posters.
Exactly, yes.
Okay.
And again, I'll just read the last one. All future meetings will be held at the district office and via YouTube for the public until executive orders change regarding gatherings. 17.0, recess to closed session if necessary. That is not necessary. 18.0, adjournment.
So I make a motion to adjourn the meeting at 8:36.
I second that.
Who seconded? Jordana. Okay, any discussion? Let's call for that vote. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed?